Welcome to the channel. Hit subscribe and dive into stories that'll stay with you long after the video ends. Let's begin. The rain hammered the tin roof like 1,000 fists, and the shack, barely held together by rusted nails and stubborn hope, shivered with every gust of wind. Inside, Elias froze. Someone was outside. At this hour, in this storm, no one ever came this far into the pines. He heard it again. A soft crunch of wet leaves, a shadow shifting behind the crooked window frame. Elias inhaled, slow and tight, and set down the chipped bowl of soup he'd been nursing. The air smelled of damp timber, wood smoke, and something new perfume, faint but impossible to mistake amid the musty scent of the shack. Then a small knock. 1, 2, 3. He stepped toward the door, feeling the soft give of the warped floorboards beneath his bare feet. The lantern on the table flickered as if afraid of the moment. "Hello." A girl's voice, clear, trembling, too refined for the woods. Elias hesitated, hand hovering over the weathered latch. No one from town ever visited him. They called this place the edge of nowhere, the forgotten path, the place the bus didn't bother stopping. He cracked open the door. Lightning flashed, white, sharp, and for a heartbeat he saw her clearly. A girl about his age. Long hair plastered to her cheeks from the rain. Clothes soaked through but unmistakably expensive. A thin gold bracelet clung to her wrist like it didn't belong in a world of mud and pine needles. Her eyes lifted to his, wide, frightened, searching. "Please," she whispered. "Can I come in?" Elias swallowed hard. Everything about this felt wrong. Rich kids didn't end up lost in the forest. This wasn't where they wandered, not even by mistake. But the storm raged and her lips were turning blue. He stepped back. "Yeah, take shelter. Come in." She slipped past him, hugging her arms to her chest. Water pooled beneath her feet on the crooked wooden floor. She looked around the tiny room, the cot in the corner, the cracked stove, the shelves lined with jars of dried herbs, and her eyes softened with something he couldn't place. Pity maybe, or disbelief. "You live here?" she asked quietly. "For now," he said. "What are you doing out here?" She didn't answer right away. Instead, she rubbed her hands together, trying to warm them against the lantern's glow. Her breath shook on the exhale. "I ran," she finally murmured. "From what?" Another flash of lightning illuminated her face and the faint bruise along her jaw. Elias straightened. "Who did that to you?" She flinched at his tone. "It's complicated. It looks simple to me." Her eyes darted toward the door as if expecting someone to burst through it. Then she moved closer to him, voice tight, urgent. "Please, just let me stay until the storm passes. I'll leave. I won't cause trouble." Elias studied her. The bruise, the fear, the soaked designer shoes that didn't belong anywhere near a dirt road. And she wasn't telling him everything, not even close. He nodded slowly. "All right," he said. "You can stay." But even as he said it, he felt it, the uneasy pressure of a truth building in the walls around them, ready to burst open the moment dawn finally reached the shack. The storm deepened, growling over the treetops as if the forest itself disapproved of her being there. Elias tossed another log into the stove, watching the flames leap higher, warming the cramped room. The girl, still silent, still tense, sat on the worn bench beneath the window, arms wrapped tightly around herself. He finally broke the quiet. "So, what's your name?" She hesitated, as though giving it away might cost her something. "Leela." Elias nodded. "I'm Elias." Leela's gaze drifted around the shack again, not judgmental, just absorbing. The patched curtains, the stack of split firewood, the single mug, the walls that leaned inward like they were tired. "It's small," she said softly, "but it feels safe." Safe. That was a word no one had ever used for this place. Elias wasn't sure how to respond, so he didn't. Instead, he handed her a folded blanket. She accepted it with a grateful nod, fingers trembling as she pulled it around her shoulders. For a moment, the only sound was the storm. Then Leela spoke again, voice fragile. "I didn't know where else to go." Elias leaned back against the counter. "You ran from someone who?" Her eyes flickered downward. "My father's driver was supposed to bring me home from a gala. We argued. He grabbed me when I told him to stop the car." Elias felt something cold slide through his chest. "So you escaped into the woods." "I jumped out when he slowed to turn." She swallowed hard. "I ran until I couldn't feel my legs. I didn't even know this shack existed." Elias rubbed a hand across his jaw. The woods were dangerous in storms, downed branches, hidden ravines, flash floods in the creek. She could have disappeared forever in the darkness. "And your father?" Elias asked quietly. "He'll be looking for you." Leela gave a bitter laugh, small and sharp. He won't even notice I'm gone until someone tells him the news cameras aren't done interviewing him. Her tone cracked just enough to betray the pain beneath it. Lightning flashed again, and Elias caught a glimpse of her expression: exhaustion, fear, and something else. A kind of desperate relief at finally being somewhere no one expected anything from her. A sudden thump hit the far wall of the shack. Leela jolted upright. Elias held up a hand, listening. Another thump, heavier this time, followed by the crunch of movement outside. Not the wind, not the storm, something walking, slow, deliberate. Leela's breath hitched. "Is that—" "Quiet," Elias whispered. He reached for the old hatchet resting near the stove. His fingers curled around the handle, the wood familiar beneath his palm. The shack walls groaned as a shadow passed across the single window, blotting out the flickering lantern light for a heartbeat. Leela clamped a hand over her mouth. Elias stepped toward the door. The shadow moved again, closer this time, brushing against the planks, shaking dust from the rafters. Rain hissed down the gutters, masking the sound of whatever prowled just beyond the threshold. Then a sharp knock, slow, measured, waiting. Elias and Leela locked eyes. The storm outside raged on, but inside the shack, the air thinned to a silence so tight it felt ready to snap. Elias tightened his grip on the hatchet. Whoever, or whatever, stood on the other side of that door hadn't come seeking shelter, and the next moment would change everything. Elias didn't open the door right away. The knock lingered in the wood, an echo that crawled up the beams and into the silence pressing against his ribs. Leela stood behind him, breath shallow, the blanket slipping from her shoulders. Another knock. Harder, like a warning. Elias steadied himself and called out, "Who's there?" No answer. Rain hammered the roof. Wind lashed the walls, the lantern quivered. Then a voice seeped through the cracks of the door, raspy, strained, barely audible over the storm. "Elias, you in there?" Leela stiffened. Elias froze, his heart punching once against his chest before sinking. He recognized that voice. He unlatched the door cautiously and opened it only a finger's width. A figure sagged against the threshold, soaked to the bone. Mud streaked his face, blood dried across his temple, his coat hung in tatters. "Tom," Elias breathed. Tom lifted his head weakly. "Help me, kid, please." Elias threw the door open and pulled the older man inside. Tom collapsed onto the floorboards, water pooling beneath him. His breath rattled like broken glass. Leela kept her distance, eyes wide. "Who is he?" "Tom Lives lived in the valley," Elias said, kneeling beside him. "He hunts, traps, keeps to himself." Coughed, struggling to find his voice. Something's wrong down there." Elias eased him onto the bench. "What happened?" Tom swallowed hard, his eyes flicking toward Leela as though measuring whether to speak. Then he gripped Elias's wrist. "They're searching the woods," he whispered. "Men, flashlights everywhere, dogs, thought they were after a bear until I heard them talking." Leela's breath caught. Tom continued, voice trembling. "They're looking for a girl." The stove crackled loudly, as if reacting. Elias slowly turned toward Leela, her face drained of color. "They said she ran," Tom said. "Said she was in danger, said the man who grabbed her would be punished," but he shook his head. "Didn't feel right, didn't sound right." Leela stepped back, shaking. No, they're lying. My father, he'll bury this before anyone can speak a word." Tom looked at her, really looked, taking in the soaked dress, the bruise, the fear behind her eyes. "So it's you." She nodded once, barely. Elias helped Tom sit upright, but the man winced, gripping his side. Blood seeped through his shirt. "You're hurt," Elias said. "Got in their way," Tom muttered. "Didn't like that I asked questions." Leela paced near the stove, fingers tangled in her hair. "If they find me, you don't understand. My father doesn't care what really happened. He only cares how it looks. He'll say I imagined it or accuse someone else or—" She stopped. Her voice cracked. "Make me disappear until the news forgets." Elias felt the shack shrink around them, its wooden ribs tightening under the weight of the truth. The storm outside wasn't half as dangerous as the men hunting the woods. Tom grabbed Elias's jacket. "Kid, you need to hide her. They'll come this way. They always check the old paths." A gust slammed against the door, rattling the hinges. Something moved outside again, heavy boots splashing through mud, closer this time, too close to ignore. Leela turned toward the window, eyes filled with dread. "Elias," she whispered, "they found us." The boots outside stopped, not fading, not approaching, just waiting. Elias moved toward the window, careful not to disturb the lantern's glow. Leela hovered behind him, every muscle rigid. Tom slumped against the wall, breath shallow, one hand pressed to his bleeding side. A beam of light swept across the shack's exterior, slow, deliberate, searching. Elias whispered, "Get down." Leela crouched beside the cot, pulling the blanket around her like a shield. Tom gritted his teeth and slid lower on the bench, trying to disappear into the shadows. The flashlight paused on the window. Elias held his breath. Then a man's voice cut through the storm, deep, commanding, practiced. "Elias Rowan, open the door." Leela's head snapped up. She mouthed, "How do they know your name?" Elias didn't answer. He didn't know. The voice barked again, louder. "We need to talk." He felt Leela trembling beside him. Tom's hand closed around the hatchet handle. Though Elias doubted, he had the strength to swing it. A second voice murmured outside, lower, urgent. Elias strained to hear. "Just break it, someone's inside." Elias's stomach dropped, the door latch jiggled, a sharp metal click. Another, Leela's whisper cracked in fear. "Elias," he grabbed her wrist gently. "Back, stay behind me." The door didn't burst open. Instead, the footsteps retreated a few steps, and then silence. A silence worse than the knocking, worse than the voices. Silence that felt like breath drawn before a strike. Lightning boomed overhead, shaking the shack so hard the lantern nearly toppled. Elias steadied it with one hand. That momentary distraction was enough. A window exploded inward. Shards of glass showered the floor as a gloved arm reached through the broken frame. A hand hooked onto the sill, pulling a body inside with force. Elias reacted on instinct. He shoved Leela behind him and lunged forward, slamming his shoulder into the intruder. The man tumbled halfway inside, boots scraping the floorboards. "Grab her!" the intruder shouted. Another silhouette moved outside the window. Tom surged up with a raw, pained grunt and swung the hatchet down, not at the man's head but at his arm, the one gripping the window frame. The blow wasn't deep, but it was enough. The man cried out and fell back into the storm. "Go," Tom rasped. "There'll be more." Elias grabbed Leela's hand. "Out the back." She followed without hesitation. They scrambled toward the rear door, a small, warped panel barely held by its hinges. Elias yanked it open, and cold rain slapped their faces as the night swallowed them whole. Behind them, the front door crashed open. Voices erupted. Boots thundered inside the shack. "Tom," Leela whispered, looking back. Elias dragged her away. "We can't help him now. If we stay, none of us make it." The woods loomed, dark trunks swaying, branches whipping in the wind. Elias pulled Leela into the trees, weaving between roots and fallen logs, feet sinking into mud with every desperate step. Shouts echoed behind them. "Fan out, they're close." The storm muffled their footsteps, but not enough. Leela stumbled. Elias caught her. She squeezed his hand, breath ragged, eyes filled with terror and trust all at once. "Where are we going?" she gasped. Elias didn't slow. "To the one place they won't think to look." Thunder cracked above them, and the only place with a truth they are afraid of. The forest closed around them like a giant lung, breathing mist and rain as Elias led Leela deeper into the dark. Branches whipped at their sleeves. Mud sucked at their shoes. Their breaths formed white bursts in the cold night air. Leela stumbled again. Elias steadied her, tightening his grip. "Almost there." "Where?" Her voice shook, barely more than a breath. He didn't answer. Instead, he guided her toward an unseen ridge. The night quieted as they approached, the storm beginning to drift east. Behind them, the shouts grew faint, but still too close to ignore. A few more steps and they reached it. A hidden clearing sheltered by towering pines, their trunks forming a natural cathedral. Moss carpeted the ground where weathered beams jutted from the earth, the remnants of an old cabin long collapsed. Leela looked around, confused. "This is it." Elias nodded. "No one comes here, not anymore." She stared at him, rain sliding down her cheeks like tears she wouldn't allow herself to shed. "Why?" He hesitated. The truth sat heavy in his chest, pressing against years of silence he'd forced himself to forget. "This was my home," he said. "Before the shack, before everything." Her breath caught. Elias walked toward the broken beams and brushed his hand across the charred wood. Even after all this time, a faint blackened line stained his fingertips. "My father built this place," he said quietly. "He worked in town, good man, quiet, people liked him." A pause. "Until they didn't." Leela stepped closer. "What happened?" Elias swallowed hard. The smell of wet earth filled his lungs, grounding him. One night men came, said my father stole from them, said he'd taken something that didn't belong to him. His voice lowered, bitter. They didn't ask questions, they didn't need proof. Leela's face softened with realization. Elias continued, eyes fixed on the ruins. They burned our home, chased us into the woods. My father died trying to protect me. I hid until morning. When I came back, everything was gone. Lightning flashed far off, but the clearing stayed still. Leela stepped beside him. Those men, were they? Yes, Elias said. The same ones hunting us now, the same ones your father hired then, and now, her hands trembled. I didn't know, Elias, I swear I didn't know. He turned toward her. I believe you. A soft rustle broke the silence, footsteps approaching through the trees. Elias tensed. Leela grabbed his arm. They found us. But the figure emerging from the darkness wasn't a hunter with a flashlight. It was Tom. He staggered into the clearing, clutching his side, pale but alive. Had to find you, he rasped. They're spreading out, you don't have long. Elias helped him sit against a fallen log. Tom managed a faint smile. Knew you'd come here, your old man would have brought her too. Leela knelt beside him. What do we do? Tom looked at Elias. Tell her. Elias took a steadying breath and pointed toward the far edge of the clearing, where thick brambles grew against a low ridge. There's a tunnel under there, he said. Old mining shaft. My father used it when he needed to disappear. Those men never found it. Leela stared at the black opening hidden beneath the vines. Hope flickered behind her fear. We go through, Elias said. It leads out past the creek. By morning they'll think we vanished. Another voice echoed through the woods, closer now, searching. Leela took Elias's hand. Together, she whispered. He squeezed back. Together. And with the storm fading behind them, they stepped into the darkness, toward safety, toward truth, and toward a future no one had planned for them but themselves. Thanks for watching. If you like this story, subscribe and visit the channel for more real-life stories like this.